A very warm welcome to Dame Billie Miller, her life in focus. I'm Sherwood McCaskey. As always, I'm pleased that you have joined us. In this, the final episode in the series, Dame Billie reflects, and just as she has done throughout her political career, she pays special attention to the issues affecting women.
If you were a woman and you dared to get married, you had to give up your job. You got no gratuity, you got no pension, you got nothing. Can't you imagine that? Women who were the ones in the field heading cane, the only Caribbean country, everywhere else men were doing that. And whether she's pregnant or not, you know, she had to do these things. That used to grind me up. I used to get, you know, visibly very angry. Women carried so much of the load in Barbados. So did men. I will never forget the lighter men. You are too young to know these things. They had something like almost the length along this house. These lighters. Lord have mercy. And then they would come under the bridge, what was called the swing bridge then, now it's the lift bridge, and these things would be filled up from the warehouses where restaurants used to be on both sides. And they had a winch. When they went to take it down, I told them, I was standing up. I had just finished the boardwalk, and I was standing on it, just watching, because I didn't want them to be doing things, moving things that they shouldn't. And so this man is in front of me now, saying, oh, we got to do this, and I was standing behind him. I said, excuse me, my gentleman, not on my watch. And if I have to sleep on this boardwalk tonight, I'm not leaving. And then I explained to him. I said, you see this winch? There are very few of these left in the world. It's like the screw dock. And people won't throw it in the sea. Gotta be mad. I had told, going back as far as Tom Adams, that, you know, you could always put Nelson out there. You know, he wouldn't like being in the screw dock. I mean, it's a dock. It's a ship's place. That's where they used to. I can remember when the schooners, the wooden schooners, and they would put them over on the side and take off all the barnacles, and then they'll redo the caulking and so on. That was something fantastic. People would gather to see it.
Bridgetown underwent major transformation. Several public areas were redesigned and landscaped under her watch.
I was told, you understand about these things, do something about Bridgetown. Well, of course, it was my constituency. The thing is that where the boardwalk is now, it's on both sides. Where the boardwalk was, where the street would take you down, buses used to go down there and so on, it started to sink. It was made of the hardest wood that you could find in Guyana. And over the years, it started to sink. Cars actually slipped over the side because there was nothing to protect you. And then the bank, it was Barclays, going back to when it was Barclays Bank, they had a quite wide pedestrian walk. In those days, I used to go to the gym at the Hilton, 6 o'clock in the morning. So I had a group of engineers, architects, and so on. I said, I may not be able, I may not have time to change from my gym clothes, so you have to take me as I am. And I said, I'm going to be there at the dot of 6:30 because I don't want to get then the morning traffic humbugging us. And the discussion was about what can we do? We can't let this whole thing sink. I mean, it would take a long time, but still, it had become dangerous. And we were there, you know, these are professional people, and I'm asking them, how can this be repaired? What can we do? I don't want a patched up job. I want something really beautiful, nicely done. And nobody could think of anything. And then it came to me, and I said, gentlemen, have you ever heard of cantilevering? Oh man, it was like if I was seeing a bright light. That was going to be the solution. You would do what repairs you had to do and bring it right up to where it would be level with the road. And then you could cantilever the walkway. But I told him, you must still give me 2 lanes for vehicles driving. They're always going to be going in the same direction along here. We can't have them coming in either direction. And do you know where this thinking came from? When we had Janet, that hurricane, it did horrendous damage also to the same walkway, and there were a number of schooners which sank. There was one called the Aberdeen, and people were invited to make bids to bring these things up and take them out to sea and whatever. And my father bid for the Aberdeen. He and his brothers, a man called, he had a grey beard. He could take hawser wire and make a knot with it. This gentleman, I can't remember his name, but he was in prison for a long time. And he came out. He was really a very nice man, but the strength of him. And to do this business now of raising this vessel, they had to do a lot of diving to see where the damage was, what techniques they could use to bring it up. And it took them, Janet was in September, and we were hoping, well, my father was hoping that he would be able to get this thing up for Christmas. It would be like a Christmas present to Barbadians. But all kinds of people used to bring food there, and they would eat so much if you're diving and you wouldn't, and you know, there was always somebody who could give an injection nearby, because there were 2 drug stores, Knight's and Collins, which is still there. You know, penicillin had finally come, and I think that is where the idea just flew into my head, because it came up early in the morning. We were all there, everybody was trembling, and then it went right back down. Grown men cried. Anyhow, my father never gives up, so they decided that next year we'll go back and we'll know now what not to do. And I remember so well, it came up. They used to cook. There was a fellow called Dozy. He was a groggist of class, but a brighter man than people knew, because he used to walk about in dirty khaki pants and so on. People thought that, you know, he's just a groggist. But he was a terrible groggist. But let me tell you, he understood engineering. And he used to do the cooking too. One of those square skillets that biscuits used to come in. And there was a man, what was his name? A white Barbadian, I cannot remember his name now. But he was a well-trained diver. My Uncle Lulu did some diving too, and Uncle Harry as well. And Daddy and all of them got together and determined how they could correct it so that once it came up, they could begin, and you know, these long hawser wires and so on going out. And it came up, and they took it out down to not quite Carlisle Bay, Browns Beach, like where Browns Beach is. And it stayed there rotting for a long time. But at least we were then able to do the repairs that had to be done to the side of the careenage. And sometimes we would be able to go and watch what they were doing, you see. And that is why this whole thing, and I remember admiring the winch and these big sacks of sugar going up on it. And it would be housed then until the ships came in to take it away in these humongous lighters. Things happened as opportunities presented themselves. And once then I repaired this side of the thing which was sinking, this idea formed in my head that what I really need now is to have a raised walk at a higher level so that you don't have to worry about getting in the way of the traffic or the traffic running off into the careenage, which happened a good few times. Johnny Chapman was one of those times. And then there was a lady, she went in. It's not his strong point. But a lady drove her car in. I'm trying to remember who it was. And the divers went in and brought her out. I can't remember what her name was. Anyhow, but the point is, I could see my larger vision of what that whole part of the careenage should look like. So I was knitting that together in my head, not ever dreaming that one day it would be given to me as a task. It was a wonderful experience because the boardwalk, people use it in the evenings. I've seen so many young brides-to-be, all dressed up in their bridal thing, taking the photograph before the wedding, you know, and it's just a nice place. You'll be amazed how many old people go and sit down there in the evenings. Now, the other side of the careenage, between the two bridges, I had to fix all of that, both sides, and I changed the bridge. It made a difference. Because with the swing bridge, when it did that, there were 3 berths that would be taken up when you swing it back. So you gain 3 berths. And right up into the middle of the Trafalgar Square, so to speak. I wanted nice, you know, chairs with backs. And it's an amazing thing. One evening I'm coming home from Ministry, Foreign Affairs, and I would always have to come over the bridge because it gave me an opportunity to see what was happening. And even before we were finished putting in seating on the far side, I would see people sitting there on the seats that we already have, although we weren't finished the project. And older couples holding hands. It brought tears to my eyes. I said, my God, this thing is going to work like magic. And it did. People just knew, as humans, they just knew this is for us. And they didn't ask anybody questions. Do I have to get permission? They just went to it, that's the water. And I thought, this is exactly how it was meant to be. So I am not saying a word. It was fantastic.
Barbados recalls with excitement January 21st, 2007, when the redesigned Independence Square was officially opened.
If only Richard Ligon Esquire could see it today. In his true and exact history of the island of Barbados, he wrote in 1657 that Carlisle Bay is without exception the best in the island. And I quote him, "Upon the most inward part of the bay stands the town, which is about the bigness of Hounslow, and is called the bridge, for that a long bridge was made at first over a little nook of the sea, which was rather a bog than sea."
I did the steps so that you could hold concerts, the police band. I went to a Bart Christmas concert there a few years ago. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Children running about. I remember one little girl, her granny brought her, and she wandered away because she met two other little girls and they were running around like mad. And some people were chirping, and I said, leave them, they're children. I mean, and then suddenly she did like this. The other two children were gone, and she didn't know where she was, and she started screaming top of her voice, "Grandma, where are you? Grandma, where are you?" So Grandma had to come and find her. But it was to do all of those things, nice toilet facilities, showers as well for people who live in the open. There are always people like that in the city of Bridgetown. There are a lot of them in the uptown, what people will call Nelson Street area, but we call it uptown. And then downtown, it was a similar thing. And I insisted that all of the public baths had to be refurbished and should stay there. Because a lot of these men used to do job work around town. When I was a child, and Saturdays going into town to the library, and then I was allowed at like 2 hours to do what I pleased, I would be up and down Tudor Street, through James Street, up Milk Market, down Subtle Street, where all of the patois-speaking ladies were. Everything, wherever there was space, tiny little rooms they had, space on the wall, and you could just stand up and stare. It was like Wonderland. And then there were tin workers, men who made your baking pans and other things like that. Hudson's drugstore at the corner. But going down into Subtle Street was like in another world, because there were a lot of them speaking patois, you know. And then there were a lot who would be speaking a combination of patois and English. So even after I became a member of Parliament for the city of Bridgetown, I would still walk through there every now and again, you know, all these sweeping brooms and things like that. And you could still hear, but not as much patois as you used to when I was a child. But Bridgetown was a wonderland. And I would never have known that one day I would have to represent it for 32 years.
And these are just a few of the major projects she pioneered during her 32 years. Another major project was the refurbishment of the existing market on Cheapside Road.
People couldn't believe it was only a market. It was so beautiful. Because I had a different concept. I said I want some big freezing machines. My father had one at his ice factory that's ready fishermen used to come and, you know, but they would come back by the next day or two. But you needed really good big freezers that people can, you know, they kill their cattle here and so on and so forth. and you would know which compartment is yours and so on and so forth. Oh, the butchers loved it. I wanted trays with nice counters, nice with lock and key, where they can put away certain things that they don't want to take home every day and stuff like that. It had to be nice bathrooms upstairs, his and hers. And, I mean, people were blown away when they came in there. They said, is this really a market? I said, but what else do you think it could be? But upstairs then I insisted, barbers, hairdressers. They don't want to be down among where people are selling, you know, beans and carrots and so on. But all that space would have been wasted space up there. And I said, you know, because the office that the market manager, he was a piece of work. You hardly ever saw him. I don't remember his name, mercifully. But he had downstairs his office, but then there was all this room up there, and I said, this is where people now, photographers, anybody could go in there. And the price wasn't high, the rent wasn't high. But now they run back out to the side of the road again, because the people at the side of the road are getting the produce sold. So by the time you get in the market, unless you have a particular person in the market, that you only will deal with that person. The selling at the side of the road is not good, because you bring home your vegetables, your fruit and so on, and it's covered in dust and dirt from the street. Sometimes you're coming around there and you have to toot your horn because somebody is literally fallen off the pavement and onto the street itself. And it's a turn. In fact, they had to take off, and it broke my heart. They had to take off part, you know, they'd restored what used to be the old town hall. And buses used to collide with the overhanging gallery. And so that had to go. And they did it in such an ugly way. I mean, they could have painted then on something so that it even gave the illusion that there was like a veranda there. But it was very beautiful when it first was saying. GIS is, well, you would know, located up there to a large extent. But that was a lot of good work. I did not like what Reggie Farley then had that portfolio, because when he started to do the thing at his refurbishment at Pelican Village, I told him, why are you letting the architects persuade you so that all of the market houses and the base, you know, are facing back in the road and facing inside? Why are you letting them do that? Madness. So people, like tourists, drive past that market, and it's the first thing they're going to see when they leave the port, and it's only a one-day thing. That is what they will see. Nothing. I just couldn't believe it. It's still not to my satisfaction. It should be a place that's jolly and things are going on day and night. But they didn't want it that way. Then they put a bus stand down there, which was good. I managed to get the Four Cross when you're coming from Passage Road, go down St. Leonard's and so on. That was well done. That was well done. And it widened the bottom part of Bachelor's Road, which was good, because that's where the fish fryers hung out. I gave them a nice little village with nice cooking facilities and so on. They didn't want that. They went right back to the side of the road. If the rain fall, anything that splash up, going straight in your tray. I mean, all that kind of foolishness people can get on with. And it's a pity, because Oystein has made it work. But for some reason down in town, you don't see people doing night out, you know, eating and drinking down on Baxter's Road like you used to see. It just died.
As part of the redevelopment of the Lower Green area, it was her request that the walls of the St. Mary's Church be reduced and replaced with iron railings.
I want people to be able to see in. It's a beautiful churchyard, and some very distinguished people are in there, including one of my predecessors who represented the city of Bridgetown. People just don't understand. They don't think about these things. Now you see those, I don't even know what to call them, coops that they have down on Spring Garden, thinking that the vendors would go there and sell their stuff. When I saw them, I said, but my God, you can't even see in between two. It is the most unlovely thing that I have seen for a very long time. And look at what happened. People are not interested. You shouldn't put it on a highway. How many cars stop and go in there? Very few. When you see a lot of cars, they belong to the vendors. I'm telling you what I know. Because I went down there a couple of times, you know, and I told them, I said, but, you know, they were so fussy with themselves that it was their idea and so on. And idea just cannot be a standalone thing by itself like that. You have to see it in the wider context.
The words of a lady who has seen it, and today she lives to tell. Dame Billie Miller, her life in focus. I'm Sherwood McCaskey. Every blessing. If you hold the view that your work has influenced the course of the history of Barbados positively, and you are deserving of having your life placed in focus, do get in touch with us at CBC and we shall be honored to do just that. Your life in focus.